What if the person you loved more than anyone in the world was the one person you were never meant to love? Imagine walking down the aisle, your heart full of joy, surrounded by family and friends, only to discover that the man you're about to marry is not just any stranger from your past. He's your twin brother. This is the story of two souls who found each other in the chaos of life, unaware they were bound by blood all along. Let's begin at the very beginning. A long time ago, a young woman named Evelyn gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. But her joy was short-lived. She didn't survive childbirth. Her heart gave out, leaving behind two innocent souls with no mother and no father. Evelyn had been abandoned by the man who got her pregnant. The moment he found out she was carrying his children, he vanished, leaving her all alone. She had only one living relative, her older sister, Margaret. Margaret was already going through a tough time, raising two children alone after her husband abandoned her. She was barely surviving, trying to make ends meet with a small business. When Evelyn passed away, Margaret took in the twins without hesitation. She named the boy Justin and the girl Justina. For children now depended on her, and her strength was tested every single day. But hardship came quickly. Her business began to crumble under the weight of responsibility. Food became scarce. Rent was due. Sleepless nights turned into months of desperation. One day, someone advised her to sell one of her late sister twins' children and use the money to start a business, so she could take care of the other twin and her own two children. Margaret thought about it and felt it was a good idea. So, she went to her late sister's grave and begged her not to be angry for deciding to sell one of the twins she left behind. She explained that things were really hard, and it was better for one of the twins to be sold and given a good life than for both of them to suffer and die. After asking her sister for forgiveness, Margaret felt a great relief in her heart, like a heavy burden had been lifted. A few days later, Margaret decided to sell Justin, one of the twins, to a wealthy couple who were childless and desperate for a child. Margaret planned to use the money to start a good business so she could take care of Justina, the other twin, and her own children. After the couple adopted Justin, they immediately relocated to an unknown town. Margaret used the money to restart her business. She took such excellent care of Justina that no one could believe she wasn't her real daughter. She raised Justina like her own daughter. With time, people forgot that Justina had a twin. Even Justina herself never knew the truth. As the years rolled by, Margaret rebuilt her life. Her business thrived again. Her children grew up. Justin, too, grew up, but in a different home, in luxury, unaware of where he came from or that he had a twin sister somewhere in the world. Many years later, Justin and Justina met in university. From the moment their eyes met, there was something unexplainable between them. A connection deeper than friendship, stronger than romance. They were inseparable. Even their friends noticed how strange it was, how they understood each other without speaking, how they shared the same laugh, the same smile. They fell deeply in love. Neither of them knew they were born just minutes apart. From the same womb. On the same day. After they graduated and completed their youth service, Justin proposed to Justina, and she gladly accepted without any hesitation. After the proposal, Justin took Justina to meet his parents. His wealthy parents welcomed Justina like the daughter they never had. She was everything they had hoped for in a daughter-in-law: kind, intelligent, beautiful, and full of life. Justin's father, who owned a successful business, was so impressed by Justina that he offered her a high-paying job at his company. It was more than she could have dreamed of. Soon after, Justin traveled with Justina to meet Margaret, the woman Justina had always called Mother, and believed was her mother. Margaret welcomed Justin with open arms. She saw how happy he made Justina, how he looked at her like she was the sun in his sky. And for the first time in years, Margaret smiled without guilt. Months later, as Justin and Justina were planning their wedding, Margaret developed a serious eye problem that seemed to require surgery. At first, she thought it was just tiredness. But soon, she couldn't see clearly anymore. Justin insisted they take her to a prestigious hospital in the city. There, after a series of tests, the doctors discovered that Margaret didn't need surgery. just intensive treatment. She would have to stay in the hospital for weeks or a month. Justin stayed by her side as much as he could, however, because Justin was very busy with some significant projects. Margaret gave him and Justina her full permission to continue with the wedding preparations while she stayed in the hospital for her treatment. "Go ahead," she told them. "I will be fine. I don't want my eyes problem to delay your happiness." Margaret then gave them her blessing. After that, Justin paid Justina's bride price, and a member of Justina's family stood in for Margaret. Once the bride price was settled, they chose a date for the wedding, while Margaret was receiving treatment at the hospital. A month later, Margaret was finally discharged from the hospital, and it was exactly 2 days before the wedding. She was still weak, but nothing could keep her away from seeing her beloved Justina walk down the aisle. As they arrived at the town where the wedding would take place, Margaret was excited. She hadn't met Justin's parents in person yet. On the wedding day, Justin introduced Margaret to his parents, then stepped away. Margaret was shocked when she instantly recognized Justin's parents. Her knees almost buckled beneath her. It was them. The couple she had sold Justin to all those years ago. The memories came rushing back like a tidal wave. The pain, the shame, the secret she had buried deep. And now, here they were, standing proudly as the groom's parents. And Justina, her sweet, loving niece, was about to marry her own twin brother. Margaret's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But instead, she forced herself to stay calm. Without causing a scene, she quietly pulled Justin's parents aside from the crowd. "Sir, Ma," she whispered, voice trembling. "I know you both. You were the couple I sold my late sister's baby boy to many years ago. Do you remember?" Suddenly, Justin's parents recognized her too. Then Margaret shared the shocking truth that shook them to the core. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Justina is Justin's twin sister. They were twin." Justin's parents stood frozen, their hearts pounding with horror. The truth hit them like a tidal wave. Their only son, the man they had raised with love and pride, was about to marry his own blood sister. "Please, the wedding must be called off immediately," Margaret pleaded. "It is an abomination for a brother and sister to marry each other." After hearing the shocking truth, Justin's parents begged Margaret not to reveal it at the wedding, which they called the happiest moment of their children's lives. They explained that many guests, VIPs, dignitaries, kings, and important personalities, were already seated in the wedding auditorium. They promised Margaret that after the ceremony, they would privately tell Justin and Justina the truth and arrange for them to divorce quietly. Tears streamed down Margaret's face as she struggled with the impossible decision. How could she allow this wedding to continue knowing the truth? But how could she destroy such joy in front of the whole world, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives? Margaret finally agreed and promised to keep everything a secret until after Justin and Justina's wedding. But deep inside, her spirit, mind, and soul were completely troubled. She felt haunted and restless, as if something heavy and dark was weighing on her. The three of them quietly returned to their rows and acted as if nothing had happened, hiding the truth behind calm faces. But just as the pastor was about to join Justin and Justina as husband and wife, he asked the traditional question, "Is there anyone here who knows of any reason why these two people should not get married? If so, speak up now or forever remain silent." A heavy silence followed, the kind that makes your heart race before a storm. Then, from the front row, Margaret stood up. She couldn't hold it in any longer. She burst out like a bomb. "Yes, there is a reason," she screamed, her eyes filled with tears as she stepped forward toward the altar. The crowd froze. The air was heavy with confusion. All eyes turned toward the trembling figure standing before the altar, Margaret. Her lips quivered, her arms shook, and her heart raced like a frightened animal in a trap. "Yes, there is a reason," she repeated, her voice cracking beneath the weight of what she was about to reveal. "They cannot be joined, because they are blood. They are twins, brother and sister." A gasp rippled through the crowd like a wave crashing into rocks. The pastor stepped back. Justin and Justina frozen at the altar, their smiles shattered in an instant. Silence fell like a heavy curtain over the decorated hall. Margaret's voice was soaked in sorrow as she continued. Years ago, their mother, my sister, died after giving birth. She left behind twin babies. I tried, I really did. I had 2 children of my own, and I struggled to feed 4 mouths. I was drowning. Her voice shook. Her eyes met Justin's. I made a choice, a desperate, painful choice. I sold one of the babies, Justin, to a wealthy couple. I kept Justina and raised her as my own. I thought I was saving all of you. I never imagined. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. The hall was dead silent, except for the sound of a broken heart falling apart in real time. Justina clutched her chest as if her heart would stop. Tears streamed down her face. She whispered, "No, no, this can't be true." Justin tried to speak, but words failed him. The girl he loved with all his heart, the one he had dreamed of spending forever with, was his twin sister. The groom's parents looked away, shame etched into their faces. The reality they had tried to bury had risen again, this time in full view of hundreds of witnesses. Eventually, the pastor canceled the ceremony. The guests were stunned. Some wept. Others sat in disbelief. The ceremony ended in chaos. Guests quietly filed out, heads bowed, unsure whether to mourn or pray. Justin and Justina were taken away separately, each drowning in their own grief. In the days that followed, the world around them changed. Justin locked himself in his room for 3 days. He didn't answer calls. He didn't eat. He kept replaying every moment, every laugh, every touch, every kiss, wondering if some part of him had always known. Justina wandered through the streets, lost in silence. She avoided mirrors because every time she saw her own face, she saw Justin's. For weeks, they didn't speak. Margaret couldn't eat. Justina barely left her room. Justin vanished for a while, lost in his own thoughts. The love they shared wasn't fake, it was real. But now, it was forbidden. Therapists were called. Friends gathered around them like a protective wall. And slowly, the anger faded. The heartbreak didn't disappear, but it became softer, less sharp. The wound began to scar. And out of the wreckage came something unexpected. Justin and Justina, though forever bonded by blood, began to see each other with new eyes, not as lovers, but as siblings who had found each other again. They leaned on each other, not in romance, but in healing. And then, something shifted. During one of the darkest nights, Justina's best friend, Emily, came to comfort Justin. She had always been around, watching quietly, offering silent support. Her kindness was a balm to Justin's soul. She listened without judgment. Her presence became a safe place. And Justin, for the first time in months, smiled again. On the other side, Justin's childhood friend, Joshua, stood by Justina like a pillar. He reminded her that life didn't end with one tragedy. His humor, his patience, his gentle affection helped her laugh again. One day, Margaret watched the 4 of them laughing together and felt something lift from her spirit. The past had shattered them, but the future was already writing a different story. Months passed. What was once a scandalous wedding disaster had turned into a quiet season of healing. The town gossiped and whispered, but the families didn't care. They had endured the storm. Now, they were rebuilding their lives from the pieces. Justin had changed. The bright, charming young man now carried a depth in his eyes, a quiet strength shaped by pain and maturity. He no longer looked at Justina with longing, but with deep affection, the kind only a twin can understand. Justina had grown too. Though the memory of that near marriage still haunted her dreams, she had found comfort in truth. The truth had hurt, but it had also saved her. It had saved them both. Emily, Justina's best friend, had been a constant light in Justin's darkest days. Her love didn't push or demand. It stayed close, soft, and patient. Over time, Justin's heart responded. Not in a rush, not in denial, but in a quiet, slow opening to the possibility of love again. Emily wasn't Justina. She didn't carry the same laugh or smile. But she carried something else. Peace. And Justin had come to treasure that above everything. On the other side, Joshua, Justin's childhood friend, had become Justina's safe space. He understood her silence. He knew when to speak and when not to. He never asked for her love. He simply gave her his friendship. And that friendship slowly turned into something deeper. Something she never expected to feel again. Margaret watched all of it with silent joy. Her guilt had not vanished, but it had softened under the weight of forgiveness. She still visited Evelyn's grave regularly, not to ask for forgiveness, but to give thanks. Because in all the mess, her late sister's children had not only survived, they had blossomed. One sunny afternoon, the unexpected happened. Justin, dressed in a navy blue shirt and a heart full of courage, knelt before Emily with teary eyes. He asked her to marry him. And she said yes. A month later, Joshua surprised Justina with a quiet proposal. He didn't need to say much. Justina already knew. She smiled through her tears and said yes too. And so, 2 weddings were planned, this time with truth, clarity, and peace. There was no scandal, no secrets, no whispers in the dark. Only love, redemption, and new beginnings. On Justin and Emily's wedding day, Justina stood by her brother, now truly her brother, with pride. She smiled as he exchanged vows with the woman who had helped him heal. And weeks later, Justin stood beside Justina as she married Joshua, the man who had loved her back to life. The 2 weddings had not only healed broken hearts but had forged a bond between 2 families once divided by desperate decisions. Margaret, once weighed down by guilt, was now surrounded by love, not just from Justina, her niece-turned-daughter, but from Justin, who now saw her not as the woman who sold him, but the woman who saved him. Justin's adoptive parents, once strangers to Margaret, became close companions. They began to visit regularly, not just as guests but as family. Meals were shared, birthdays celebrated, holidays spent together. Their once distant bond was now deeply rooted in a common love, Justin and Justina. Emily and Justina, once best friends, now sisters-in-law, laughed often about how fate had woven their lives in ways no one could have scripted. Justin and Joshua, childhood friends turned brothers, stood by each other like anchors. What began as a scandal that made people whisper in markets turned into a testimony that made people cry in churches. People stopped judging. They started forgiving. They began to understand that sometimes people make desperate decisions not out of wickedness, but out of survival. And so, life continued. Justin built a company and dedicated it to supporting abandoned children. He named it Second Light, in honor of the second chance he never expected but fully embraced. Justina became a counselor, helping other young people navigate trauma and identity crises. She often ended her sessions with a line she lived by, "You are more than what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after." The story of Justin and Justina became a mirror for others, a reminder that truth, no matter how painful, is the only path to peace. That love, when grounded in honesty and healing, can rise again even from ashes. The truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. When Margaret revealed the truth at the wedding, she shattered a dream, but saved 2 lives from committing an irreversible mistake. In the end, honesty brought healing, unity, and peace that a secret could never give. Our past may be broken, but our future can still be beautiful. Justin and Justina's story began in pain and confusion, yet it ended in love, family, and redemption. Your beginnings do not define your ending. With courage, forgiveness, and support, even the deepest wounds can birth something extraordinary. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more powerful stories that reflect real life, real emotions, and real redemption. Stay blessed, stay safe, until next time. Thank you very much for watching.